The most famous discussion of the Parshanim when it comes to Noach, of course, is the debate that Chazal have on the opening of our Parsha. We are told that Noach is Ish Tzadik Tamim Haya B'dorotav. What does that mean that he was perfectly righteous B'dorotav? So as we all know, there's the famous machloket, whether it means to say that he was only relatively considered a tzaddik compared to the Risha'im of his generation, or perhaps the opposite, it's really l'shvach, that he was a tzaddik despite the negative influences of his generation. Had he been in another generation, he would have even been greater. This is well known to all of us. Perhaps, though, not as well known is another surprising discussion in Chazal, which Rashi quotes a little bit later on in our story. In Perik Zayin, Pasuk Zayin, the Torah tells us after Noach having been commanded to build the ark, informed of the impending destruction, the years and years and years of effort and toil and tremendous work that Noach had to build the ark, to get all of the assigned animals to bring them into the teva. The Torah then tells us, Perek Zayin, Pasuk Zayin, Vayavo Noach ubanav v'ishto u'neshebanav ito ela teva. The time had come. Noach, his children, spouses, they all entered the ark. Mipnei me hamabul. Mipnei me hamabul. From a pshat perspective, clearly the Torah is telling us nothing surprising, really even nothing, certainly nothing controversial. Why else would you go into an ark if it wouldn't be for the fact that there's a flood? So, because the rain started falling, the water started rising, Noach and his family realized now is the time they went into the ark. Nothing surprising and certainly nothing controversial. However, Rashi here on the Pasuk quotes an amazing Chazal. Rashi tells us, Mifnei me hamabul, af Noach mikatnei amana. Noach was from the not great believers. He didn't really believe that much. Hayamamin ve'eno ma'amin shiavo hamabul. He didn't really believe. He was unsure whether the flood would actually take place. V'lo nichnas l'teva adche dachakuhu hamayim. And the Rashi from Chazal read the end of the pasuk as saying, not just as a narrative description, of course, why else would one go into the teva, because the water was rising, but rather, Noach, even as the rain was falling, even after the years and years and years of building, he still was unsure that Hashem would go through with it if there really would be a flood. And it wasn't until the water rose to such a great extent, to be so high, that he had no choice. He kind of got forced into, mipnei mehamabul. The water forced him and his family into the ark. Really? I mean, it's one thing to say maybe Noach wasn't as great a tzaddik as Avram or something like that. But mikatne amuna? He didn't really believe. Ma'amin ve'eno ma'amin, he wasn't sure. I mean, first of all, that seems to be quite a criticism leveled at someone who was sachakol called tzaddik b'dorosav. But secondly, if he didn't really believe, would he have worked so many years, such backbreaking labor, all of that, and he wasn't even sure? It was all just a hedge? That's kasheh lahamin. So in a very famous and, I think, inspiring and profound Hasidic interpretation, Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, in his Sefer Kedushat Levi, offers an insightful explanation. And he does so by asking first another question, well asked and well discussed, much discussed by the Mefarshim. Why was Noach not like Avraham, in that Avraham argued with Hashem and tried to save the people of Sodom after he had heard the prediction of destruction for them, whereas we have no record of Noach ever arguing for the inhabitants of the world when he's told about the flood. So Rav Levi Yitzchak explains in his own unique way, what does that mean to have a situation where Hashem tells you something and you not only don't like it, you argue with God, you question God? Says Rav Levi Yitzchak, that takes an unbelievable amount of self-confidence, really chutzpah, but tremendous self-confidence. Avram believed in himself, he believed he was worthy to argue with Hashem. Noach lacked that self-confidence. It wasn't that he was morally less sensitive or less humanistically sensitive than Avram was. Of course he cared and felt bad for people, but who am I to argue with God? What kind of person thinks that they can argue? Noach said, I may be worthy of being saved, but I'm not worthy. I'm not such a madrega that I could argue with Hashem. Says Rav Levi Yitzchak, perhaps, maybe you could see that as being legitimate humility, but really, in fact, it was false and misplaced humility. It was really insecurity. What's the siman for that, says Rav Levi Yitzchak? Because since he had a certain amount of insecurity, it snowballed. Over the course of time where Noach was building the Teva, years and years and years, quietly and humbly accepting God's decree, that insecurity festered, it grew, it snowballed. And what began with a feeling of, I deserve to be saved, but I'm not on the level where I can argue with Hashem, says Rav Levi Yitzchak, over time, that little crack of insecurity grew bigger and bigger to the point that eventually Noach not only felt he was unworthy of arguing with God, eventually he felt unworthy of even being saved. Mikat ne'amana, he didn't truly believe. Ma'amin ve'eno ma'amin, he didn't truly believe in himself. He didn't truly believe in his own worthiness to be saved. And that's why it wasn't until the water physically forced him into the Teva that he didn't enter. Because after all, I'm not really any better than anybody else. Why should they die and I be saved? What started off as seemingly respectable humility, I'm not on the level to argue with God, was really ultimately an unhealthy insecurity, and eventually led to him not believing in himself and his own worthiness to be saved, and almost led to the end of the human race, had he not actually eventually gotten into the Teva. This is a profoundly original idea of the Kedushas Levi. The idea of self-confidence and its importance in Avodas Hashem is a very popular idea in Chassidus. And the truth is, we have seen in recent years, it's become a very popular and well-acknowledged idea in the world of psychology. Perhaps the psychologists have finally caught up to the insight of the Hasidic masters. Balancing self-confidence with humility, understanding the difference between humility, which is healthy and appropriate, and insecurity is of course one of the challenges of every person and every Eved Hashem. But the notion that there can be a misplaced humility that is unhealthy, according to Kedushas Levi, Noach in this regard is the representative, is the exemplar of too much humility, misplaced insecurity, and we have to see the virtue in realizing who we are and having appropriate and healthy self-confidence.